you've probably seen a million times, the picture of how the customer explained the swing, how the project leader understood it, what the customer really wanted. And I guess the point I'm trying to get at here is you write out this spec, and let's say to you the spec is right, but the result you get in the end is not what you think it should be. How do you address that mismatch?
Yeah, so there are different mismatches, the different types of mismatches possible. Mm-hmm. So one type is when the intent was understood correctly by the agent, mm-hmm. but the implementation is just buggy. Mm-hmm. So, you just say, okay, so I wanted this, talking about files, I want to open the directory under cursor, but it actually opens my home directory every time. Mm-hmm. And that's just a bug, because there was a requirement that said what should happen, and for some reason it doesn't work. Sure. So that's a bug. You can tell the agent that, in testing, you see that this requirement is not satisfied and it needs to be fixed. And it's a separate story, by the way. Requirements are incredibly useful for deriving test suites, mm-hmm. because they are individual statements. So for an isolated statement, you can devise a bunch of test cases, and you can probably even run them automatically and check if the requirement is satisfied. Mm-hmm. But assuming you haven't done that and you are doing manual testing, you can say, okay, yeah, I see. So there's a bug. Like, it's obviously a bug. It needs to be fixed, mm-hmm. and the agent will be fixing that. Sure. There's another option where your requirements were not really specifying something, and there is a different interpretation that the model took. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you wanted, I don't know, you wanted a TUI, and it built you a web UI for your file browser. You're like, oh, I forgot to tell you sure. right. that I actually meant a TUI. So that's completely in-spec change. So you're adding another requirement that, you want this to be a TUI application. And this is like completely fine. You may need to rewrite a lot of may need to regenerate a lot of code because of it. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is you can actually try this experiment. It will only take you half an hour. You can try to build like a basic file browser in web UI, mm-hmm. and then tell it to rewrite to TUI, mm-hmm. and see how many features it will forget on the way. It will be quite interesting.
Right, this because, is like a context mm-hmm. window problem? Is it?
There are multiple things. So if you're doing it in the same session, it will be a context window problem, which is real. Mm-hmm. If you're opening a new session and doing that, it's just that all the features are not listed anywhere. They're not in context at all. Mm-hmm. And they will be like inferred, reverse engineered from the code or from whatever MD files you preserved, like plans or whatever you let the model read. Mm-hmm. But like practically you can try this, and it's often difficult to retain all the features. And this is a very extreme case, of course, but a more sort of day-to-day thing is I'm working on this project, it's a big one, and I open a new session and I describe a new feature I want to build, and it gets built. But on the way, 3 more features that existed already and worked fine are broken, mm-hmm. because the agent didn't realize that they existed while it was building the new one. Mm-hmm. And this is where requirements really help. If we can preserve the entire set of requirements for this project that are actual at this point in history, mm-hmm. And we can add them to the agent's context, and we right now do it through a simple plugin to Claude Code, just a hook that reminds it of all the relevant requirements. It's, now it knows that the features existed, and it won't be breaking them so easily. Mm-hmm. And, if you have a good test set derived from requirements, it's even better. But, to prevent even like the silliest mistakes, it really helps to surface all the requirements relevant at this point before it starts generating code that's just forgetting things.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I wanted to say is you've mentioned that the amount that you write yourself is 5 to 10 times less, But what about the time to create that document, that time to create those specs? Because it's one thing if it's less to ultimately write, but if it takes you 10 times as long, you're basically at the starting point you're already at.
That's fair, yeah. And I think this is the problem we hit with the initial version when we actually asked people to write like proper documents. And this was a big revelation for us that writing something from top to bottom is very difficult. But if you go with agentic coding approach where you write short prompts and you refine your understanding and you like prototype and iterate very quickly, you end up with a session, like the entire conversation with an agent that contains all the requirements. It's like it's not a document. It's very messy. It's like it's not something you want to show your colleague to explain to them what you're doing. But we can extract the document from the session. It's contained there. It's just like very cryptically encoded. And this is what we do. So basically, we'll let you as a human follow your own thought process in a dialogue with an agent, but then we can extract a document from that. Like not even like we can turn it into a document as well, but we can extract something better than a document. Let's not dive into this right away.
Okay, so you can sort of iteratively build up the requirements, like starting with a blank sheet is always this scary, difficult proposal to even if you have an idea of a complex system you want to build, that idea of where do I actually start breaking down this problem, that can be an immediate blocker for even the most experienced of developers.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of us, even like very experienced people, may need this exploration phase or ideation phase where I have a sort of a feeling, a hunch for what I want to build, but I need to poke around in what I already have. I need to try this and that and see what works better. And this is a very valid process. Like this is the creative process of a developer who's like trying to figure out the specifics of what they want to build. And it's incredibly helpful to use an agent to prototype as you go. So one thing you can sort of try to keep it all in your mind and imagine different versions and think them through. Some people are very good at that. For some people, it's just a very sort of difficult chore. And I think for most of us, it is kind of a chore. And it's a lot easier for most people to prototype it and see the prototype and see what you don't like about the prototype and fix the prototype and accumulate your understanding through this iterative process. And then you get this through this prototyping. Usually what you get is just code. And usually it's not very pretty code because you were trying things out and there's like lots of dangling ends and whatever. But now on top of the code that you might not really care about, you already have this collection of requirements that you've developed through this process. And that collection of requirements is a good source of truth for what you want to do. And depending on how careful you were while working on this, you may even want to keep the code, which is fine. Like depending on how vague your idea was initially, you may have a pretty good implementation at the end. You don't have to throw it away. But importantly, the whole point of like raising the level of abstraction is to put the source of truth in the human language. And this conversation with an agent that ended up in a version that you're satisfied with, it contains all this truth in the most compact way, in the way that you were thinking about it, right? So it's in human words, it's not in code. So it's higher level of abstraction already. The thing that we need to do is to extract it, make sure that when you change your mind, we took that into account and we don't use like stale descriptions and things you don't really want anymore. Right. And just put this together, and there you have this source of truth kind of document that already generated an implementation that you're satisfied with.
So what is the, I guess, current state of things, and what are the sort of areas where you think things can be improved with how it currently functions?
Yeah, so if you take what we have on our website right now, this will be CodeSpeak takeover. So the thing that's on the website is you can just install a Python package with CodeSpeak, and it can do a bunch of things from the old version, but it also has this takeover command that's kind of close to what I'm describing. And that will be like the first iteration of this idea. It can read your code and your sessions, and it will show you, first of all, the module structure of your project. And then for each module, you can extract the requirements from your sessions. And that those requirements will be just saved as an empty file with individual requirements listed more or less structurally, feature by feature. So this is a very early prototype. It's kind of slow. It's not like the representation is not very structural. It's a little expensive, so it's kind of a super early thing that we showed a bunch of people. We got their feedback. And now we're building a much more sort of thought out version of that that will not require waiting so long. It will not require so many tokens spent. But the overall idea is the same. We are looking at what you were talking about with your agent, and also looking at what other people in your team were talking about their agents, and we're putting this all together to have a complete picture of what the requirements are in your project.